We are about to get a gigantic aura overhaul inside of the game of RuneScape, pretty much reworking how you gain a bunch of different power spikes and buffs inside of the game, which is pretty game changing, and then we're going to talk about that today. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Ed. I play a lot of RuneScape and talk a lot of RuneScape. Thanks for stopping in. We're going to talk about how auras going forward are going to be removed from the video game, and I'm going to give you some of my thoughts and feedback as somebody who's been playing this game for over 7,500 hours. Clocked on Steam alone. If you're new around here, please be sure to subscribe. Trying to hit 10K by the end of the year. Maybe catch a live stream here on Twitch or on YouTube. Let's get right into the video. Now, Jag is detailed inside of their Aura blog post, which pretty much is addressing the whole problem of it all. And they say the problem with auras is that their acquisition is time-gated, requiring lots of real-life time to obtain, and then you can't speed that up in any way. I thought that was kind of a funny way to mention, like, yo, bro, you can't, like, age faster. And I do really do hate that the only way that you're able to get a lot of these auras that we're going to be talking about through in-game loyalty points, which loyalty points are tied to how long your membership is, or if you've bought a premier package for membership, which provided you I think like a big chunk of loyalty points as well. I think it's like 150,000, which is a lot of loyalty points. I was able to get you like the highest tier aura at the time, so that's a really big deal. That if you're gonna be able to get a gigantic buff like this, you would get it through Premier rather than, or like a lot of time invested in like playing the game, rather than like actual in-game gameplay of like, hey, I just completed the easy combat diaries, I now unlocked the maniacal aura or something like that, which provided a big damage boost if you're using magic. I've always believed if they were going to tackle this problem and not want to have auras be tied to membership, it should definitely be unlocked through quest lines. It should definitely be unlocked through doing certain like achievements in the game, or unlocking certain areas, like if you're doing the Ark, or if you unlock it through Anachronia, which is like the giant dinosaur island. Like, these things are very impactful to like your account already, and I bet there's a lot of ways you can introduce them thematically. You can make a mini quest, you could just make an achievement set, you could make an item or something like that. Well, items are kind of tricky when it comes to the aura buffs, because the auras themselves were an item slot, and so if you take away the item slot, you're kind of stuck with this problem of like, hey, I was already this strong with this set amount of items. Now you're taking away the aura slot, which I now just lose the buff entirely. So if I want to gain the effects of, say, the penance aura when I'm doing a Slayer assignment, and the penance aura provided me prayer points, so I was able to upkeep like soul split, my damage boosting prayers and buffs like that. It was really important for me to have that. I would just pop the penance aura, and then I would be able to take a little bit of damage, and then I'd be able to sustain my prayer, because you get prayer points based on how much damage you take. The problem now, though, if you take that aura slot away, and you're trying to weave in the auras into a new item or something like that, you're now losing power, because now you have to swap out one of the items you're using for Slayer or bossing, and now you have to end up losing, either compensate your damage you're outputting for utility, which can be, give or take, that could be a pretty upsetting thing to deal with. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more, because they go into how they want to replace auras, but let's keep talking about the problems they got going on. And the biggest thing, again, we already addressed one, they aren't earned through gameplay, they're just directly earned it through loyalty points. And then most auras are miscellaneous buffs. They don't add anything, which is super true. We're going to talk about the terrible list they got going on. And then they add an extra system of micromanaging on top of everything you already have to do. Now, like, RuneScape's got a lot of buffs. There's a lot of things you take care of that you manage regularly in your regular gameplay. I'm talking scrimshaw buffs, which if you got your relics properly on, how many buffs you're going to be doing even during combat. There's so many buffs that you're dealing with at a regular time, which, in my opinion, I don't really mind them. I've played games before with lots of buffs and status effects and trackers like this. There's a lot of ways you can customize it, but there are a lot of things to deal with. There's a lot you gotta compound to look at and try and keep track of if you're trying to like min-max your experience, right? And so taking away auras would be a great way to like not really have that problem anymore. But my biggest piece of problem that came with auras definitely was that they all lasted 1 hour or 2 hours, depending if you extended them. What this problem created was, if I wanted to go PVMing with my boy, right? Me and him are going to go duo Raksha. We want to try and get really fast speed times, right? Only way for us to get that sub 1 minute 30-second kill of us doing duo was if he was running Reckless Aura, which provided him an extra 15% damage boost on range, while he takes an extra like 50% damage or something. And then I was running Maniacal, which is the same thing but for magic. We only had that 1 to 2 hour time slot to be able to do that, because I don't know if he has aura refreshes to be able to get that buff again. I may not have the aura refreshes for that. Plus, you just got this little icon on the very bottom of your screen that tells you you only have this much time to play the game in this state of power. Because once that aura is done, you lose that 15% damage. You're just done. So it's just kind of frustrating to know that, like, dude, I only have this amount of time to do this thing. Plus, honestly, if you ever do any group PVM, you do any group content with people at the later stages of the game, everybody's like, I can't do this, I'm not an aura. I can't do this, I'm not an aura. I've literally been kicked out of groups because I'm using the wrong aura at a fucking event. Because I'm instead of using a DPS aura, I'm using a sustainment aura because my gear isn't good and I might die doing this new piece of content. I was kicked out of a raid because of that. And that is just discouraging, one nonetheless, to be able to try and get into group content. Second of all, what an asshole to kick me out of the group. It was just kind of a frustrating thing. So, like, and they just examine your character and what you're using, or the gear you're using, and they kick you out because you're not using everything that is supposed to be, quote unquote, supposed to be used, which is DPS auras. So that kind of thing is in itself doesn't really set up a safe space or like a very usable space for people to work in, especially if you're trying to get into the group content. Now, the way they want to fix auras, right, and try and fix this problem, because essentially when you're taking away these buffs, you're nerfing people, right? Nobody likes being nerfed. People only like either getting laterally buffed, meaning that power gets shifted somewhere else, or you just get straight up buffed, or the power remains the same. Nobody likes getting nerfed, and that's exactly what removing auras would do. The way they're planning to resolve this is, one, they got to take care of like how power creep works, right? This was actually a really good point. I didn't really think about this until I read the blog, is that they want to be very careful about how to not create sudden power creeps across the baseline of the game, be that in skilling or in combat. What that means is this, right? If you all of a sudden like, yo, I'm going to take away auras, but we're going to give a straight 30% DPS increase and a 20% increase sustain to all combat styles at all times, because we're taking away penance powder, vampirism, which heals you, and your damage auras. That just sounds absolutely terrible to balance and for the general health of the game. Like, it would tank items, that would destroy a lot of like boss records and stuff like that. It would not be good, and it would not be easy to balance going forward either. When it comes to skilling, it would make it a lot easier to AFK methods, or just completely negate a lot of methods if you have a higher success rate for something, or negates like failing agility courses or failing or not burning any food. This would cause a lot of different, I don't know, I guess like hiccups in the road when it comes to skilling and the overall balance of the game economy and your XP rates. This is probably one of my favorite quotes from this whole blog post. Removing auras from the game will allow you to play RuneScape on your own terms, without time pressures and without feeling like you're less powerful compared to your friends. No more attempting to kill a boss without realizing, oh, I don't have that aura yet. Our ultimate goal with this is to create a fairness and accessibility of content without suppressing or supporting the game's simplicity and long-term sustainability. The way that they do want to keep auras in the game, like their effects in the game, is by transferring a good chunk of them over to other items in the game, or in some cases creating new items. The penance aura is going to be transferred into one of the existing things that is going to be proposed. The powder of penance, which is high level. It can be very costly. They run around like a 700k at the moment, and they're very hard for Iron Man to obtain. There's the penance blood essence, high requirements, vampiric questline, and could tweak some quality of life. And then the Saradomin's Book of Wisdom, or the God Book, or the illuminated version, which is an upgraded version of the God Book. It could be the replacement of the current effect, and the current effect is literally, I think, like some lightning comes down and deals like 200 magic damage. Not very good, very, very low level, not really worth using. I personally think that upgrading Powder of Penance and just making the Powder of Penance stronger would be the better ideal for that. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that it was harder for Iron Man, I could not care less. You literally sign up to play Iron Man because you want a harder version of the game. That's all I have to say about that. But I do think that it would make penance powder more valuable, and because they just nerfed how you obtain powder of penance by doing the whirly gigs at the Hetz Oasis and getting their shells for that, it's going to be way more valuable. So then you're increasing a training method, you're creating a better value of like what a penance powder already existing item that people already know to bring or use, I think that's a win-win. That makes more sense, and you're not impacting the inventory slots that are already available. They also throw around thinking of making more relics, like archaeology relics, to make the aura slots. I think that's a bad idea, unless archaeology gets a buff too, where you have more space. Because again, the problem here is that you're taking away something from us. I have to replace one of my relics to use this relic now, and then it's just like, okay, now I'm losing player power somewhere where I don't really want to lose it. You know what I mean? I think introducing it or adding it to certain items as a passive effect would be the best way to go about it. I don't really like them adding in another relic for this problem. Vampirism is a aura that heals you when you deal damage. This one could be added to the Scrimshaw of Vampirism that is already in the game. That works primarily for melee. It would work for all styles now, and that would be fantastic. Which, again, would provide tremendous sustain for a lot of people in the game. Range currently, with the combat modernization, if I remember correctly, will not have any kind of sustainment for them. While magic, when you get ancient magics, you will be able to use Blood Barrage. Melee will have its own form of sustainment, and then Necromancy has the Ghost and Blood Siphon. Range is the only combat style that I believe at the moment does not have any way to currently sustain themselves with combat, unless you're using crossbows and you're using like onyx for criminal bolts, and those are really expensive. There's no real way as a ranger, as you're going later in the game, to have some sustainment. If you have the Vampirism Scrimshaw, it would make ports more valuable for you if you're an Iron Man. It would make ports more valuable as a main account, because then you can make Scrimshaws and then sell them. I think it'd be really good. I think this would be kind of nice to see. It could also be transferred onto the Vampiric Blood Essence from the Vampire questline, and could tweak it with some of the quality of life. And then the Zamorak book, again, they're thinking about changing the Zamorak books. Could replace the current effect of that one. Again, the effects of that are so minimal, doesn't even matter what it does. And I'm not a big fan of using the God books. I think that would make it a bigger pain in the butt when you're trying to run vampirism or the effects of vampirism. Because I've popped the vampirism aura in the middle of a boss hour. Like if I'm doing high in rage bossing or something, or if I'm learning a boss, I'll use vampirism. I'll use a non-DPS aura so I can feel comfortable learning the boss. And for the longest time before I got really comfortable bossing, I did not run DPS auras. I always ran sustainment, penance aura. I used its accuracy auras. I used a vampirism. These were the bread and butter for me, and so there was no real reason for me to have to do that. And for a long time, I just kept using vampirism. It's a way better idea to try and keep that passive buff on things that don't impact your items. I'm gonna keep repeating it. Equilibrium is one of the strongest necromancy or damage auras in the game. It just gives you a straight up buff for a lot of things you need, because you're not really looking for crits for necromancy, and the way they want to transfer that one is by making it either an invention perk or just a brand new reward. I'm hoping for that brand new reward factor, because again, if you move it onto a perk, you create a problem of people needing to change all of their perks and all of their gear existing already for something they were already getting before. So, I don't think it's a really good idea to try and reintroduce these items and these effects from the auras in items and things that we already have set up. And then they're just straight up nuking a bunch of auras. Jack explains to remove Reverence, Corruption, Harmony, Salvation, Poison Purge, Knockout, Brawler, Runic Accuracy, Sharpshooter, Ancestor Spirits, Berserker, Maniacal, Reckless, Dark Magic, Regeneration, Aegis, Majorat, Inspiration, Invigorate, Dedicated Slayer, Quarry Master, Jack of Trades, Wisdom, Elimination, Resourceful, Dwarven Instinct, Friend in Need, Festive, Oddball, Desert Pantheon. Because to be very honest, not many people were using most of these, except the big hitters here that I was actually kind of sad to see was definitely Dedicated Slayer. This one lets you like save Slayer tasks when you're doing a lot of Slayer assignments. So like say I'm hunting 100 dragons, you have a 50% chance that when you kill a target, it doesn't take down from your Slayer assignment, which is really good for people looking for long items like myself. So that's kind of one that's going to be a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, but hey, all in the name of game balance, I suppose. But yeah, that's kind of an L on that one. And so for my closing thoughts of the changes on auras, I do think that is a pretty big change for a lot of people, and it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for the strength bonuses and the utility bonuses of healing and the sustained prayer, and honestly, especially for skilling methods. So for a lot of skilling methods, you need auras to make sure that you're able to maintain your gathering, your success rate for things, and it's a very important change. I do think this gives people, the developers, room to be able to make more and impactful changes when it comes to skilling and when it comes to balancing around actual gameplay things, rather than like, oh, well, we have to keep in mind the power creep that auras provide people. I think that gives a lot more flexibility and creativity and rewards that developers can make for future content, especially for like Haven High. They're like the new areas they're hoping to expand into the game that we don't know about coming from the roadmap. I think that's a lot of room for possible improvement there, and I do think that they should definitely fucking not add it to the relic system. Don't take away perks and repurpose perks. That sounds really stupid. Don't go with that one. I kind of like the idea of new totems on Anachronia. I kind of do like the new idea of introducing new items and proposing like giant quest lines, like the vampire quest line, the penguin quest line, these types of things. The giant quest lines will reward this level of power, because one, that incentivizes people to complete those quest lines. Two, it's going to be bringing people in line with power updates that are current and that mean a lot in our game as it stands today. Those are just my closing thoughts. And another big question for you is, what do you think they're going to do when it comes to the loyalty points? People spend a lot of loyalty points, myself included, almost like probably like 1 million over the past 10 years of loyalty points on auras. We'll love to see what they end up doing that. Love to hear your comments about it. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!